suited out of position three ways. Not going to happen. On the right here, I raised Andreas calls, jugs three bets. I have an easy call with my 9-5-7-8, and I hit a very nice flop for my hand here. Certainly, I'm not folding this with these stacks ever. So, pick up top two and a double belly buster. Six gives me the 8-9 nut straight, and or wait, wasn't it a belly buster? No. Oh wait, I screwed that up. It's actually not a double belly buster. Just top two and a gut shot, actually, but a gut shot to the nuts. 5-10 queen, 5-6 queen 10 with a suit against Ziigmund's 60% range actually might be a peel or re-raise, but it's ramping up the variance really hard, and I think, and since he's not going anywhere, I think it's better in my best interest to just stick around and play a little bit tighter than that. Although I think in a vacuum that might be plus EV, but with a lot of risk. So you see here, no bones about getting the money in. Andreas made it lead here, which I think was a good play given the stack sizes, and Drugs and me really tanked it. I mean, it puts Drugs in a really awkward spot because I'm behind him. So I really like Andreas's flop play here too. You'll see what he shows up with in a second. I guess I might as well roll his hand out. Alright, so here's what everybody shows up with. Obviously, I'm in excellent shape here, as I'll show you in a second. And I mean, not to spoil results, but this hand didn't go very well for me. But we'll look at it on the replayer. So I got it in with 59% equity here, three ways, which you can't really ask for more than that. Andreas actually only had 19%, but the actual hand played out very poorly for him, but I do like his play, and I'll explain why. So Andreas has a hand. He has top pair. He has two backdoor flush draws. Very vulnerable hand, but the reason I like his flop bet here, betting 14-5, is that it just creates immense pressure on Jugs or me, who, although, granted, what I've seen Jugs or me in my limited action is that he's never folding aces here in this kind of spot. But it really does just put him in a tough spot. I guess given the fact that Jugs realizes what's going on here and is not folding aces, Andreas's play becomes worse because he's not doing well against aces. But I mean, it puts Jugs in a really tough spot, and honestly, I'm not really sure what the correct play is with aces there. I mean, I'm sure he realizes that Andreas's range is wide, but the fact is, he still has to worry about me behind here with a covering stack, and in this case, I actually had a hand. Now, that being said, I'm a lot less likely to have a hand on a 7-5-3 flop than I would be on like a 9-7-5 flop, because then that starts hitting my 10-9-8-7s, and it still hits this hand. So there are just a lot fewer hands that would hit this flop than that hit a slightly higher flop. So, given all these facts, I think it's a very interesting decision in Jugs' spot whether to stack off with aces there, and he does have a backdoor flush draw too. I actually think it's probably a good stack off in Jugs' spot, and so I think given that, I mean, I said I like Andreas' flop play, but I think it becomes very close. I think given the fact that both Drugs and me are kind of aware that the kind of hands that Andreas is going to be able to lead out here, I think it might actually be a losing play. But against players who are going through their thought process in a different manner and may actually be mucking aces in this spot, and also I really don't have to have a hand here. There are very many hands in my range that I'm just folding like King Jack 10-9s that just miss the flop completely. So I think versus the two of us in our ranges, Andreas's play is probably a losing flop bet, but I love it against other opponents who, I mean, if he can get aces to fold there, it's a ginormous win for him. It's just creating tons and tons of EV, and unfortunately it didn't happen for him here. And unfortunately for me, the turn comes a 3 of diamonds and the worst card in the deck, and I lose the pot. But such is life. But I think Drugs made a very aware stack off. I like Drugs' stack off a lot, and overall I'm really impressed with Drugs' play. I'm not really sure where he came from. I guess he was probably grinding lower PLO, but I think he's a good player. Here against Ziigmund, I mean his range is just so damn wide that I thought about four-balling it there, but I decided to restrain myself because I really don't want to get 5-bet with this hand. If I had like a Jack 10-9-8, I would probably 4-bet here. But with King 10-10, I mean, there's a lot of value in, like, I really want to make sure I have a chance to flop my sets and not just get like a ton of money in pre-flop against aces and then be all nightmared. So I flop top boat, which is great. Zig checks, which I think I mean, I don't really expect him to have much of anything here. Might as well go over the right table quick. The right table is a pretty standard hand. Andreas is playing a 30k stack. I raised an early position with Queen Jack 8-9, which might actually be too loose. I think Queen Jack 8-9 in this situation actually might just be a limp call in a 4-ring game. Well, Ivey and Patrick are sitting out, so we're only playing 7-handed. Comes a little closer, but I think I should possibly still limp call. So here on the left, I don't really expect Ziigmund to have much when he 3-bets and checks, but he can show up with aces sometimes. So I bet 9,200. Nice little probing size. It's a size that kind of looks like I'm gonna run a multi-street bluff, I think, or like at least like bet multi-streets. And I mean that's my intent. When I bet 9,200 on this flop, I'm very rarely just gonna shut down on the turn with anything. I mean obviously it's not shutting down when I have top boat, but if I say I have Jack 10-9-8 here and I decide to use my 10 blocker to use that to determine that it's unlikely, like there are only 2 10s left in the deck, so it's unlikely someone has top boat. And then just by pre-flop, I mean Ziigmund can kind of show up with anything, but it's still only 2 5s in the deck. It's pretty unlikely someone has one of them. So I think it's a good spot to run a multi-street bluff with a hand like Jack 10-9-8 to just try to fold out aces. Here when Urin calls here though, obviously his hand's not aces. He would have 4-balled him after Ziigmund made it 52 and I called. So Urin never has aces here, so I think Urin's range is very skewed to a 5, and I don't want to lose any value against a 5. I think a weak 5 could definitely be checking back on the turn, and aside from that, Urin knows that I'm a tricky player myself, and I can be making a move like the Jack 10-9-8 move that I was just talking about. Although I mean Jack 10-9-8 is not exactly the right hand to say because I would probably 4-bet that, but just any hand with a 10 in it, slightly weaker hand. All right, and here I just decide to put Urin in for stacks. Again, I think his range is heavily skewed to a 5. I don't think he has a full house. I think he could very well be checking back his 5, and I think he realized that my hand is polarized to a very strong hand or a bluff. So it makes no sense for me to check here. What I could do possibly is size my bet a little weaker in hopes that would induce more calls. But I think there is some element of the fact that I bet a sizing on the turn that set me up for basically a pot-sized river shove that makes it that could make him more likely to hero call. Actually, doesn't happen in this exact situation.